Monday, May 13th. Hope all you mothers out there were spoiled silly and shown lots of love on Sunday. This is the Sportsline Podcast. I'm Bubba O'Neil. Monday tends to be kind of a grind for so many, so let's spice things up with some sensational chatter from the sports world on this week's edition of the Sportsline Square-Off. Well, having been at CHCH for just a wee bit now, it's been kind of interesting to see some on-air personalities sink or swim. Let's just say that this fella is more than staying afloat. Well trained in a variety of aspects of media, Louie Butko has navigated so much in such a small period of time. In radio, he hosted shows. In fact, there were times he worked the board, produced, and hosted shows. Now, with this move to CHCH as the weekend sports anchor, he's had a taste of it all. Writing, video, reporting, and hosting on pretty much every show in the house. Now he's the pilot of his own program, hosting the popular Newsmakers and Trending Now podcast. Louie Butko, it's been a couple of months, and I know that now you're a big newsy guy. But I know sports is in your heart there right now. You just finished telling me that you turned off Twitter. Which really is a key for a sports guy. Yeah. But you're living a better life by doing it.
So it's a more annoying life because I have to find myself like Googling the Blue Jays scores as opposed to just opening Twitter. There's a lot of negativity on social media. We see it firsthand, and it's not getting nicer. I still use it here at work. I still have it on my computer. I just deleted the app off my phone just as like a peace of mind thing. Right. So for the first week or so, I found myself going back, but it's been nice. But yeah, the sports stuff is the hardest stuff to follow, especially this time of year because there's so much happening.
Yeah, there really is. And you're right. There's something about that. I mean, I avoided it for a long, long time. But once I kind of got into the notifications thing, it may have ruined my life. Like, it's crazy.
Checking,
and then like them. Dinging and then being out there with your normal friends that are not into news or sports, into the industry, and they're like, "Why are you constantly looking at that thing?" And I'm like, "I've turned into one of them." How did this happen?
Yeah, well, and there's just so much going on. I know there's going to be things we're going to talk about today that I'm going to put some blame on social media and some things on just the sports calendar and the way it shakes out and the way everything's kind of all happens at once this time of year. The days are getting longer, and like you said, sports had been my job for so long, starting with TSN 1150 almost 10 years ago, that like it became my job, and it became harder for me to disconnect between work and enjoying sports. And I know, I'm sure that sometimes you struggle with it too, where sometimes you're just genuinely a fan and you want to enjoy it, but then sometimes it's work, and sometimes the people who are reporting who are getting, pardon the term, crapped on for their analysis, the players themselves. Like we've talked about this, and last time I was here, that these players are individuals. At the end of the day, they're still humans. So nobody, no matter what they do, likes to be told they suck, like to be told that they're the worst. And Twitter, especially, I find is a really toxic place for that a lot of people, especially anonymously, like to just explode their negativity all over there. So it's been a more peaceful process for me. I don't think I'll ever be able to quit it, like Twitter for sure, especially considering what we do. But it's been different.
You're right. And for those that can't really figure it out, the fact that it's a faceless kind of thing is just it's really tough. And put a name to it, put a face to it. If you're going to go out there and you're going to throw a dart, like, come on, put a face to it.
Listen, Bubs, people come up to me all the time, tell me how much they don't like me, but I respect them for it because they're coming up to me and they're saying it to my face.
Yes,
so you got something to say, just say it to my face.
Well, I always put it this way though, right? The Don Cherry, whether you like Don Cherry or not is another thing, but he did say one thing many moons ago. 50% of the public love me, 50% of the public hate me, but 100% of the public watch me. Right? Yeah. So that's all I think every one of us are hoping for in some ways, or at least 97%.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Hey, now, before we get into it, let's talk about what you're doing right now. And I think it's so interesting that you have, and I admire you for stepping out of your comfort zone and doing Newsmakers. And I mean, it's right there in the name, Newsmakers.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun, and I've been given a lot of freedom and creativity to kind of make it my own. And it's been great. I've always had a news background. I started in news. I was a kid who wanted to be that reporter on the scene back in the day. And so, yeah, news was always a big part of my life. And yeah, weekends were great. And I loved working sports here. But it was a full-time job that said, hey, you get to build this from scratch. And like I said, I'm always very inquisitive, friends, family. Like I love having conversations and just being like, okay, cool. So like, how does that make you feel? And things like that. So this just allows me to do that professionally. And yeah, there's a lot of topics we cover. There's a lot of politicians. There's a lot of community activists and things of that nature. And then, yeah, at the end of the day, it's still about the conversation and, having that free form to be able to go in whatever direction I feel like it and being able to react. And yes, it's not live, but it's live to tape. So we try to minimize, just like this show, there's no edits that really need to be made. And then, yeah, it's just a genuine conversation that I try to have with people and, forget that these cameras are here, forget that these lights are on.
Absolutely.
And they really let their guard down. And like I said, it just becomes an honest conversation. And then it's not so much an interview, or it's not so much putting them on the spot. It's making them feel comfortable so that, maybe they do let their guard down and maybe they do say something that could be newsmakers, newsworthy.
No doubt.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, it'll be going on a year in September for Newsmakers, but we've been doing the Trending Now podcast for over a year now. So that's been a cool experience.
And you get to work with the amazing Nicole Martin, which you get on the weekends as well too.
Absolutely. Yeah, Nicole was here when I started on weekends, and yeah, we get to do the show together every Friday. And I still get to do sports on Trending Now on Friday, so I do my little sports segment. So I stay connected, and we've met so many people in this business, and there's so many great people. You've had a lot of them on your shows, so just those conversations that I still have with friends in sports. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Can I ask you this one last question on this? I mean, have you noticed, and I know you do have a lot of politicians, one of the things that we struggle with in this side of the world in terms of the sports things is getting the players to get out of their, quote, media training kind of voice and ways to answer questions. Is it the same with politicians?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, there are going to be athletes and politicians who stick to the scripts, who do not deviate, who just know exactly what to say, when to say it, and those people are very boring. Like, no offense. They are very boring. They are hard to interview. They stick to talking points. They read off prompters and all that stuff. Yeah, no, I think it's a skill that I've personally developed, is that, even before we start, it's always just like a quick, like, hey, we're just talking. We ask for cameras are here. We're on TV, but if I can be on TV, anyone can be on TV. So just relax. And it is building, and it is a line of questioning that you have to get them to let their guard down. You have to see opportunities. Like, again, like I think I'm pretty good at that, to see opportunities to maybe pounce on a question or get them to open up a bit more. Right. I think I'm really good at reading people, and I think that's part of the charm of the show, is trying to get that little extra information that they wouldn't have gotten. But yeah, there are some people who are just going to be really cagey, who either don't trust the media or don't like talking to us, or think I'm going to twist their words. And I think having a podcast is a little bit better in the sense that, like, I'm not going to edit anything. Like, I'm not going to take anything out. These are your words. Yeah. Like, I'm not trying to trap you. And that's why I always tell them, like, I'm not looking for any viral moment. Like, that's not the point of the show. Like, I'm not going to ask you, like, why'd you hit your wife, right? Like, I'm not going to ask those sort of questions, like, right? Like, those sort of trapping questions. And I think that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm still learning, right? Like, I've only been doing the Newsmakers thing for a year, but yeah, I'm trying to figure it out as I go. Well,
you're doing an amazing job, and you're really, really true on that too. And that's the wonderment of the podcast sort of format, is that you're right. We're not getting you into little, 20-second, 7-second sound bites here. We're just talking. Yeah. And sometimes we may not even talk about what you think we're going to talk about. I may want to know what kind of toothpaste you use in the morning, or whatever the case is. And it's those little tidbits I think really become memorable for so many people. So can I bring you back into the dark side for a little bit?
Let's do this.
All right. Let's talk some sports.
Up here. Hold on.
fuel them up. Look, dude, that is not even the large. That's
the extra large.
That's a rarity. I don't see that too often.
So it was 20% off. So I got it. I had the app, so it was like 20% off. So I was like, you know what? If it's gonna be cheaper, I'm gonna go for the full thing. But this is gonna take me all day to drink. I swear.
It's work on that. It'll be freezing.
Halfway.
You might as well throw some ice in there for an iced coffee.
It's basically iced coffee by the afternoon, man. It's pretty good. It's like a 2-for-1, right? It's a hot coffee in the morning. It's an iced coffee by the afternoon. So we're doing okay. It's lukewarm right now. So
sports time, folks. Oilers and Canucks. Boy, I'm telling you, if you've watched any of these hockey games, they're special. I don't know what it is. If it is, there's a hatred between Vancouverites and Edmonton folks. But anyway, there was a lot of hype going into this series. I guess it's the first time they ever played each other in about 30 years. Louie, is it living up to the hype for you? And who's going to advance out of this series?
I think so. These are two teams that don't like each other. We saw that at the end of the game last night. They're pushy, they're shovey, and yeah, I mean, we go back to the beginning of this series. You had Alberta columnists writing about that this is the battle between those who want the pipeline and those who don't want the pipeline. I don't understand how two provinces right beside each other are so diametrically opposed on just about everything, but this one's really living up to the hype, and I think it's missing its star factor, and I think that's a credit to what Rick Tocchet and this Vancouver Canucks have been able to do, right? Like, I think it's Zach Hyman who's leading the way for scoring for the Oilers in the series, but Connor McDavid was really shut out yesterday, and they got under his skin, and yes, he was taking some slashes and took a solid cross check that likely would deserve a suspension, and Susie, whatever his name is, that's not your time to shine, right? And I think if you're getting McDavid pissed off, you're doing a good job. And Artur Silvas, I looked up the pronunciation first when I was filling in for Brienne last week, and again I looked it up before I came on, and I still screwed it up. But how often do we see this, Bubs? A young rookie goalie, not a lot of experience, third string, but like Binnington, not a lot of experience, goes on the run of his life to win the playoffs. The combo of goalies that Las Vegas had last year. Go back to Matt Murray, guy with not a lot of experience, but comes in, gets hot. So yeah, I think the Canucks have the Oilers right where they want them, and then the goalie on the other side. I said going into the year that Stuart Skinner was going to be their Achilles heel. What does he do? He gives up 5 goals on 18 shots last night, 4 goals on 18 shots, whatever it ended up being. So, yeah, I think this is the Canucks series, and I hate to say it because there's not much about Vancouver I particularly enjoy about that team, right?
A lot of Ontario people really don't want the Canucks to come through on this. I don't know what it is. I think there's a lot of people, at least in Ontario, that are thinking, you know what, it's time for Connor McDavid to get to the distance or at least get to the cup. And you're right, it's strange what's happening with Connor McDavid. Feast or famine. I mean, the 2 games ago, no shots on goal.
Yeah.
And then he went crazy, and I think he went 1-3, 1 goal, 3 assists. And then last night, nothing.
Could you imagine Connor McDavid playing in the Toronto media market right now?
Gosh.
Though? Like, you talked about that Steve Simmons column with I think it was Radley a couple of weeks ago. Steve Simmons, right? Where is Mitch Marner? Like, could you imagine front page? McDavid who or something like that? Like, I think I would agree that there is a part of me that would like to see McDavid be successful, and there's also the chaos factor that I really enjoy, that what's gonna happen to Connor McDavid if this team doesn't win? Is he gonna eventually want out of Edmonton? Like, he's a superstar, he's gonna want to win a Stanley Cup. He won't be the first superstar to ever leave Edmonton, right? At least the other guy won a couple before he left. There's a part of me that really enjoys the chaos factor of what's gonna happen if Edmonton, but there's also the general fan in me that sees, like, Stuart Skinner was not gonna win you a playoff series, right? Like, Stuart Skinner was not going to be the difference, and maybe he has time to prove me wrong, but based on what we've seen, I think this is the Canucks series to win at this point, and I think Vancouver's got a good shot. They were real good in the West,
and they don't even have their best guy. Like, I mean, their best guy in Pettersson, he's not really going that well right now, but other guys have picked up the slack, and Brock Besser, almost had a hat trick in the first period. As you said, the goaltending has been exceptional. exceptional. But Hughes is just a stud on defense. He's so good. But yeah, Vancouver, you got to give them their props. One thing I will say here, we talk about, and I know Joe Bowen had to call out after nearly being 50 years as the broadcaster, calling out Leafs Nation. Please get off your seats. Please get off your hands. Cheer for your team. I'll tell you, whether the games have been in Edmonton or Vancouver, they're off the hook. Like these crowds, and they're all wearing Canucks jerseys, or they're all wearing, like, it's either orange and blue or that green and blue inside the arenas, and they're so loud and so into it, and they're into it in the first and into the second. If you get a power play, the fans are standing on their feet. It makes the broadcast look and sound so good.
Well, listen, I think we're going to get into this. I see the big three up there on our list. I know that's a topic, Maple Leafs. That's something we're going to talk about. I think there's a reason why Brendan Shanahan still has a job, and I don't want to jump ahead of it, but a lot of it has to do with the amount of money people are paying to sit in that lower bowl for Maple Leafs games, right? There's a business aspect to that I think the Maple Leafs have just kind of said that we don't really care about. It's great to see. I watched the Carolina game on Saturday night. That was a great crowd, desperate crowd, needing to win the game, and they were living and dying by every shot, every hit, right to the end. You go to Dallas, the fans are going insane. This is what playoff hockey is supposed to represent. And when we're talking about the Leafs winning one playoff series in X number of years, that home ice advantage means something, and other teams are getting it, and the Leafs haven't. And yeah, it just adds to even watching it on TV. Bubs, you mentioned it. It just adds to it, and you're living and dying by every shot. Like me and my buddies are watching the game. We didn't give a crap about Carolina or New York, right?
True.
Right? Like we didn't, but it's just like like we're getting up with every goal, or like every hit, we're losing it, and you feed off that energy that the fans have, and if we're doing that sitting 1,000 kilometers away in a different country for two teams we don't care about, just to be a fan in that building, got to be something special. And I one day hope to experience what that's like, Bubba, a playoff game with a meaningful crowd. So who knows?
Well, let's get right to it. Yeah. I mean, on Friday, the big three, the new Maple Leafs big three, Shanny, Pelly, and of course the likes of Tree Living. They all three of them in front of this, what I was told, almost 100 media. So that means more than sports media. That's news and sports media looking for answers on what the Maple Leafs are going to do. I think there was a tone for the first time since I've been at least covering these kind of press conferences at the end of the season. I did sense like change was coming. Did you feel the same?
I hope so. I mean, like, Keith Pelly was pretty honest. I've been here 4 weeks. What do you want from me? Like, I've been here 4 weeks. Like, I haven't been here in 20 years. I haven't lived in Toronto, which, again, like, wasn't that the problem with Shanahan? Was that he was from Toronto, but he hasn't lived here, hasn't experienced the city, he doesn't really know what's going on. By the way, he's not a Toronto Maple Leafs legend. He's a Red Wings legend, and I don't understand. I know I say this a lot. I don't understand what Brendan Shanahan's doing, and I go back to what I said in the last answer, where, yes, he has... he's got a new logo that has made the Maple Leafs millions and millions of dollars in merchandise, right? Just on the new logo, he brought that in. The Centennial Classic stuff, the outdoor games, the connecting with fans, the Legends Row.
Making money
hand over fist, which is what he's doing. And I guess, like, if you're a company... And that's what MLSE is at the end of the day. If you're a company that can look at your results, your profits, what you're making, then I guess it doesn't matter what the result is on the ice.
I have to stop you there. I think it does matter, because winning a playoff game, each playoff game represents a little over $1 million cleared to Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. Wouldn't these guys want to be getting deep into the postseason?
I mean, they obviously they do. I mean, I'm not saying that they don't care at all, but MLSE, the board, they've been kept happy, man. There's no way they haven't been. And yes, they want to win, but they also understand there are 32 teams in the NHL, and only one team can win every year. And it could take 3 decades for, the Leafs to win again.
You sound like John Tavares.
Well, but is it not true? And again, hearing Keith Pelly talk about all the money that they can spend, and yes, there are league league rules, but we're going to do everything we can within those rules to make sure. What else do you need at this point? You have a staff, you have a medical staff of hundreds. You have the top facility in pro hockey and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment with all the science available to you. Yet you're making these bonehead decisions. Like the one answer I would have loved to have asked, or one question I would have loved to have asked, Bubba, Brendan Shanahan and Brad Treliving, how can you justify your decision to give Sheldon Keefe a 2-year extension before the year started? Because you got to pay him that. You owe him that money. You didn't have to do it. Why'd you do it? And I don't know. You're never going to get honest answers from these people, and that's not really their job, because they don't have to report to me. Mm-hmm. They don't have to report to you. As long as they can go to their bosses, and that being Keith Pelly now, and say, hey, we made this much money. We could have made this much money, but here we go.
I think with the Sheldon Keefe thing, here was you had and it's amazing because it's mirroring itself. You had the likes of Brad Treliving come in there and says, I just got here, right? And I have to evaluate this coach and this team and blah, blah, blah. By giving him a contract extension, it was buying him time, right? And we all know this, that when a guy like a general manager comes in there, they generally want their guy. But if you're new on the job, why not give that head coach a 1 year, or give him a year, right? At least. You sign him to the contract. Everything's good. Look, we don't want you as a lame duck coach. You give him that. Money's nothing. So let's give him the contract extension. This is no different now. Pelly comes in here, right?
Do you think?
And he does the same thing to Shanahan, right?
Do you think he gives him an extension?
Well, he's just going to not. He's going to keep him.
He's got 1 year left, though. He's got 1 year left.
He pretty much has at least 1 year left. It says, I'm going to continue to evaluate. Because you know what? Yes, a guy like Keith Pelly, Keith Pelly knows so many people, right? He could snap his fingers and get a new president of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment in a second, right? There's probably people in his mind that he has already, right? So he could have done that and fired Shanahan and then brought someone in. But no, let's give them a year. I can evaluate. And if they win, they win. If they lose, it wasn't on me anyway. That wasn't my guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same way Treliving was thinking.
I think 10 years is a long time, and I agree. I think Treliving, was kind of put in a box. I'm sure that the agent, Keefe's agent was pushing the Leafs, being like, well, my guy's not going to be happy if he goes into the year without security. Like, I don't know if I can get the best out of him. And again, is Brendan Shanahan making that case right now to Keith Pelly and be like, hey, I signed a 6-year deal in 2019. Well, that's going to be up after next season. If you really want to get the best of me, I want to know that long term, I'm thinking about you like you're thinking about me. And again, it's a part of the business, being the president, being the general manager. Like, I get it, and but the amount of blame that falls on individual players a lot of the time, or in this case, coaches. There was somebody who hired him. There was somebody who's had 3 chances to hire a general manager that they thought should be their guy. 2 chances. Kyle Dubas, not your guy. Brad Treliving, is he your guy? We don't know. You had 3 chances. Hire coaches. Not your guy.
Actually, the first guy was Nonis. I mean, he didn't.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember, he didn't whack him either. He gave him a year too.
Yeah,
before Shanahan said, "I'll make some changes."
Well, just because they needed to tank, though, right? They needed the worst possible coach in there to tank.
That's true.
No offense, Nonis. That was a joke. But they did need to tank. And that's the other thing. It's should Shanahan be rewarded because the Maple Leafs won the lottery and got Austin Matthews? That's literally what happened, right? The Leafs won a lottery, and we saw the lottery giveth in Austin Matthews and taketh away with other teams. But yeah, Brendan Shanahan, when he looks back on his record with the Maple Leafs and it doesn't have a cup, where would that rank in terms of career accomplishments for him? These 10 years of one playoff win. You were a champion. Yes, you were. Yes, you had a great career in the NHL, player department, whatever you were in. But if you don't win a cup with the Leafs, has this 10 years been a failure? As a fan, Hell yeah. Hell yeah, it has been. I saw a playoff game. I was working there last year when they got eliminated against Florida. Like, that's the closest I've been to even a Leaf game, man. It's so unaffordable that I have genuine conversations with Leaf fans. Be like, well, who are you cheering for next year? Knowing full well that I'm going to ready get my heart broken in Game 7 in Boston, April, 2025. I have it circled on the calendar. Game 7, Boston losing. Anyway, yeah, I do think Keith Pelley might be the right guy to fix it around. I wasn't beaming with encouragement following the press conference, but let's see how the next few months play out with this team before they hit the ice. Give them the benefit of the doubt, figure out what you want to do differently this time, who you're going to bring in. I'm sure it's going to be Berube, another coach that's just going to be recycled. So it's hard for me to get excited about the Leafs, Bubs. It's still too soon, man. It's still too soon.
Oh, the professional women's hockey. The PWHL, their playoffs are underway. Final Four action. What are your thoughts of the product? Obviously, the arena, as it has been in the regular season, it's full. Are you watching?
I'm watching the highlights. I think this goes to what we're talking about, that you want to play hockey in the winter, that's fine, but man, there is a competition for eyeballs. There's only so much time that I can commit to sitting down in front of a television and watching 3 hours of sports. And it's no disrespect for the PWHL, but my allegiances lie a little bit differently this time of year. And there's something about playoff hockey in the NHL that gets me out of my seat. I think the PWHL has been a great product. I've heard nothing but good things, and even Toronto, from what they started in terms of a bit slow, trying to find the connection, and then just have been the best team in the league since about the first or second month. So yeah, I think the timing is unfortunate, but I'm one of those people who thinks the world should revolve around my schedule. So no, even the NHL game last night, why play a game at 10:30 on a Sunday? You had literally all day Sunday to put hockey on, yet you decided to play them at 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. So why is the
there's
game...
your East Coast bias.
But again, always, Bubs, there's going to be East Coast bias from me, man. Try to make it more accessible to me. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing about the Women's League is that, yes, I know they're easy to find on YouTube, but TSN, is it TSN 4? Is it TSN 5? I have this problem with the Ticats game sometimes. The marketing is getting there, and for the first year, I think it's been doing amazing, mm-hmm. but I'm not fully committed to it yet because the Toronto games were impossible to get to, and that's a huge part of endearing yourself to a fan base, right? Like when you're playing in a 2,500 seat arena that's going to sell out, that there were no tickets available. I feel it with the Brantford Bulldogs. It's hard for me to get emotionally invested if I'm not there for a couple of games to get to experience it. So yeah, I'd like to see, maybe a permanent move to Ricoh Coliseum if that's in the cards, to make it more accessible. But yeah, we're cheering on our girl Sarah Nurse and all that kind of stuff and the local representation that team has. So, I think the finals, I'll definitely tune in and make more of an effort. But yeah, year one, I think they're doing a great job. And the only thing is, make the games a little more accessible for me.
But the funny thing is because the games have, you're kind of correct in saying you don't know where the games are. The games are on television, folks, but these games have been either on CBC, on TSN, or Sportsnet, right? Yeah. These games have been bouncing around all season long. And I don't know if there's up to the stations to actually promote it a little harder. And I know they're doing a wonderful job, and they have been all regular season. And you're right, the product is still fantastic. Triple overtime games, back and forth. Toronto have been certainly dominant in their series, and I thought it was really neat to see that their playoff structure had that, you picked who you want to play, because that could really come back to bite you in the bum. Like it really could, but it hasn't for Toronto. But I think we're falling in a situation where you're right. There's only so much time to watch and sit in front of the TV. And I'm bad. You're bad because we're sports people. Yeah. And we spend probably more time in front of the TV than most do. Most got to go to work in the morning, or they just watch for an hour, or watch the first and second period and then go to bed and then find out later. There's a lot of competition right now, and I know they had that international break for the Worlds there, so it pushed the season back, I guess, forward a little bit farther than maybe they like, because you're not going to win the war. No offense. They're going to have their market. They're going to have their actual niche market. But if you want to grow as a league, you have to go beyond the niche market. And when you're competing against the National Hockey League and the NBA playoffs and F1 and golf, like there's so much going on. And then locally here, it's CPL, CEBL's coming up. A lot of eyes.
A lot of eyes.
A lot of eyes, right? So I don't wonder if that season maybe should change. I don't think the women's league and the men's league should clash against each other.
I don't think so, but like you said, I don't think they, it's expensive to keep rinks operational as ice rinks in the summer, right? Like, it's high. You got to maintain the buildings and you got to keep the ice in. And I know technology and ice is getting better, but yeah, I think it's unfortunate that, you're playing in the midst of NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs. And by the way, shout out Taylor Pendrith, Mackenzie Hughes, top 5 finishes yesterday. Yeah. Wells Fargo's after, Rory went off there.
Yeah.
Great
you
to
almost
see.
gave it away at the end. He got sloppy.
Yeah, the double after Eagles and whatever. Yeah, a couple of Eagles, but no, I thought, like I said, it's really hard. And even as a fan, even as a diehard fan guy, like I sometimes pretend to be one. It's tough to commit to so much time. Like, I appreciate the highlights and I appreciate the packs that are out there, and they seem to have figured something out with women's hockey. It's been the most successful league that we've seen. Now let's see them keep it going, because that's going to be the challenge, but it's also going to be a great opportunity for them.
CFL now. Tiger Cats have opened camp, and they are sporting a new leadership, at least on the field, and off the field is, to a sense, in general manager position. The easy question is, will it lead to improved results, Louie?
I think so, and it's funny that you say like the leadership's changed, because I was down there Thursday for rookie camp and rookie QB camp, and it was still like the familiar faces, the Ed Herveys and Orlando Steinauer making an appearance on the field. I really get the sense that I had to look it up. Scott Milanovich's last game coached in the CFL was a Week 20 loss to the Edmonton Elks now, but in 2016, Bubba, this is a guy who's motivated to get back, and just to see him, it was really refreshing almost just to hear a different voice. And that's no disrespect to Orlando Steinauer, who I have the utmost respect for, but it's going to be different. It's going to be, like, even just with the media, Milanovich is right there telling you exactly what he's thinking. You had Orlando Steiner, who kind of went to the Ken Austin School of Media Management, where, I'm not telling you that. I'm not going to give you that. There's a refreshingness to
he
being
just did
around
it in a nicer way than Kent.
Yeah, exactly.
Kent was a little tougher.
Kent was a bit more stern. So I'm excited to see Scott Milanovich really have his hands in it. And that's to your question here, the new leadership. It is Scott Milanovich's football team. Yes, Ed Hervey is the GM. Yes, Orlando Steinauer is the president of football operations. And yes, there's the Scott Mitchell effect of all of it, right? In the man upstairs. So it is a really unique brain trust in Hamilton. But what Milanovich is going to get out of the players on the field, I think is going to be great. I really do. I have a lot of confidence in what he can do with Bo Levi Mitchell, and an older quarterback. He's still 33, 34. He's not old. He's not old, right? But
a lot of mileage, though.
Look at what he did with Calvillo late in his career. You look at what he did with Ricky Ray with the Argonauts. Like, this is a guy who knows how to get the most out of quarterbacks that people are getting ready to write off. You and I were just talking about it. The offensive line is going to be a huge question. How quickly can Bo Levi Mitchell get the ball out of his hands? I think the offense is revolving around Bo. Like, yes, they like Taylor Powell. They signed him to an extension before camp started. You heard about the way Milanovich was talking about Powell. Oh, he's a grizzled vet, man. He was out there. He's a leader. He's vocal. I think Taylor Powell is eventually the future of this Ticats team, but I think Bo Levi Mitchell is going to get every opportunity to succeed. I think he's going to get a bit of a longer leash than maybe some fans would like if things don't go well those first couple of weeks. But this offense is built around Bo Levi Mitchell keeping him upright. Butler coming back, I think, is huge too, and being able to see what this team does. But that being said, Bubs, you and I have been around this team a lot the last few years, particularly, and there's a lot of faces that aren't there.
Yeah.
Right? Simone, Dylan, Teddy retiring before camp
Dylan
started.
Wynn.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys. Tunde Adeleke.
Your guy from Fawn Hill.
Back. Yeah, Chris Van Zyl. Right? Yeah, exactly. So there's a uniqueness to this season, especially for me. I'm not part of the Ticats Audio Network this year. Decided to take a step back from that this year. So I'm really going into it let's see what happens. There's not a lot of familiar faces. There's some, but there's not a ton of familiar faces.
Godwin getting cut.
Yeah, after just signing him in February. So, again, not sure. I'm excited to see, McGriff, right? Guys that I was excited to see in camp last year make it through. But this is going to be a completely different Ticats team. This is, I'm not sure what, Milanovic's expectations are. I'm sure, 12-6, 13-5. They want to win every game. I get that. But go back to that 2012 Grey Cup that Milanovic won with the Argos. That team went 9-9. Go back to the Alouettes. What they do last year? I think they were 9-9, 10-8.
10-8.
There's a process to this. It's a long season. Sometimes people forget that, but great to see Bo Levi back out there. And I think Bo Levi and Scott Milanovic, if they can get on the same page from day one, if Mitchell can stay healthy, then I think Ticats fans have reasons to be optimistic going into this year.
I will say this one thing that was interesting when it comes to the Tiger Cats and all my social media postings, that I saw a real trend. And again, right from what you said, almost the very first thing you said, and this is no shot, and this guy's got bigger skin than this, but a lot of people had pointed out to me, or at least commented, or this was a thread of conversation, that Coach O, and I don't buy this in a way, but that they believe from the outside, and you know who I'm talking about when I say from the outside, that Coach O was too much of a player's coach. I don't know what that means in a way. I think I know what it means, but I think what these people are trying to say is that they need someone to get in someone's grill. And I feel like Coach Milanovic is the kind of guy that would do that. O might do that, but you would never see or hear of it.
I think that's the point right there. It's to call him a player's coach, because he didn't yell at people. That's the argument that these people are trying to make. And yeah, I can see that in the hundreds of maybe thousands of practices I have sat there at Tim Hortons Field and watched Orlando Steinauer conduct. I never saw him blow a gasket. I never saw him scream at somebody, on the sidelines. He was calm, cool, and collective. But he also knew to give the players their space. We heard about him say it all the time. He very rarely goes into a locker room when it's not game time. That's the player's space. He lets the players have it. He'll go in, he'll give a rah-rah speech, at halftime and post-game, but he lets the players do their thing. And I think, Orlando Steinauer, one of the great people you're going to meet in the CFL, but it's just really unfortunate. This team seems like snake bitten, right? Ken Austin, back-to-back great going to these great cups and falling just short. It's this Ticats team, 2019, right? It's just everything with this Ticats team, just yes, I can understand the frustration of being a fan. And, we talk about the Leafs 67, Ticats 99, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this year. And I think Milanovic is going to be one of those guys that isn't going to be hesitant, cameras rolling or not, isn't going to be hesitant to get in somebody's grill and really, that tough guy, not that it wasn't that, but that tough guy, let's go, run through a wall type guy. So yeah, I would agree. Not with the people online, of course. I never agree with them. But I would agree that maybe Milanovic has a different voice, as a new voice, can get something going with these guys.
On Sunday, the Toronto Argonauts announced that Mr. Chad Kelly will no longer be participating in their training camp. Made a lot of headlines when he did show up at Guelph University on Thursday. Are you surprised at this change of fate?
No, I'd be surprised if he was still out there. But in the grand scheme of things, Bubs, why was he out there to begin with? Like, how? And, we saw Christina Costabile, somebody pretty high up. She's been with the league for a while, right? In the league media department type thing. Really come out and say that she wasn't happy with the way that this was being handled. She wasn't happy with the league handling it. Then you had another female employee in Winnipeg. Again, like somebody who's so well respected within league circles in terms of what she brings, not just to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but league wide. This was a rare Pinball Clemens misfire, right? Like, Pinball should have been able to read the room a little bit better based on his experience. Like, Chad Kelly didn't need to be out there. This didn't need to be headlines, but it was. Like, out of sight, out of mind. Like, that might not be your philosophy, but he doesn't need to be on the field, right? You can keep him in locker, like in the training rooms and video rooms and all that stuff. Like, this guy is public enemy number one right now in the league, and I think you just opened yourself to that kind of criticism. And I'm not surprised that he's not there day one of training camp. If I do see him at any point this year within this suspension, I might be a little surprised. But yeah, I'm not really sure what the Argos are doing. That being said, he is the league's highest paid player. He is the reigning MOP. So what are you going to do? Just not work him out? So it's a difficult spot.
He didn't need to be seen, though. I mean, come on. I mean, and you said a miss by Pinball. It's a miss by the organization. Like, come on. Like, this, you had to know. Like, I hate to draw comparisons, but I will. This reminds me when the Tiger Cats tried to bring in, and June Jones tried to bring in Art Browse. Like, do you not think people know what's going on? Do you not know about like, what were you thinking? Like, you knew that there's going to be some type of backlash, and Art Browse had the shortest career in Tiger Cats coaching history. Right?
Credit to Scott Mitchell for immediately facing the media after that too, right?
Absolutely.
Saying the decision wasn't a good one.
We didn't make.
Pinball almost doubled down when he was questioned about it last week, right? Mm-hmm. You had Shinetti up there with TSN and the rest of them, 3 down, asking, like, what's he doing here? And Pinball's answer wasn't great, right? No. And I think this, he's kind of a pariah right now, and he hasn't shown any remorse, right? He's done the opposite. He's gone on these stupid Instagram live feeds where he's saying stupid stuff. Like, and that being said, Bubs, we knew Chad Kelly had this reputation, right? Like, that's the other part of it, right?
But we were singing. The hilarious thing is we were singing his praises 6 months ago as being one of the all-time, because the CFL has had a reputation over, and I'm a little older than you, over a long space of times where a lot of thugs, guys that weren't so good, guys with checkered past. This was their landing spot, and the CFL's been criticized over years for that, and they've tried to make changes with that, right? Johnny Manziel was here, right? Johnny Manziel, like, come on, all right?
Oh, Johnny,
I am Johnny. You're right, and then he proved himself. Everything we said that could happen. And actually happened. Disappointed? Yeah. Absolutely we were.
Yeah.
And Chad has kind of gone in that same direction now, because here we turned it around. He was the pilot of a 16-2 team. Fell short in the East Final in a big way, but MOP. Yeah. And just all this stuff that we're finding out, or at least has leaked out, and some of this stuff leaks out to his first year. That's the crazy thing to me. So did the Argonauts know what was going on? Did they think they could tuck this underneath some type of carpet? It's just a bad read of the room. Let me ask you this. Do we need to know exactly what happened?
I don't think so. We got the little taste of the report, right? The CFL's independent investigation, some firm in Saskatoon, I believe, based on 3 Down Nation's reporting, they said they could corroborate some of the things that were accused. There were other things they couldn't. I think for a lot of people, like, that's enough. They have the text messages that prove that, he may have made an inappropriate comment to come to his room while in Hamilton. I don't know what Argonauts stay in Hamilton when you're playing Hamilton, but okay. I don't need to know like gossipy details, but I'm pleased with the league's report, and based on what I read on 3 Down and what the league has done, I think it is an appropriate response. A 9-game suspension, maybe he shouldn't be practicing until a couple weeks before, but yeah, I don't need to know the dirty details. No.
Well, the one thing I will say, another thing that I will say I'm disappointed in, and this is just a personal thing, I don't know how you feel. A guy I have a lot of respect for his football knowledge and his experience in Jim Barker, being on the Rod Peterson Show, another podcast like sports show that is run out of Regina, out of Florida as well too.
Shout out, Roddy.
Yeah, Roddy, great guy. I mean, I've been on the show. Both of us have been on the show a number of times. Jim Barker sort of thought that he kind of compared his situation as a player personnel kind of guy, general manager, being fined for saying certain things, and then expecting that Christina Costabile for going out and saying what she said, kind of aligning the two and saying that maybe she should be fined as a league person, and going out and sort of blasting the league, or at least the Argonauts. I thought that was a poor example.
Yeah.
I didn't know where he was trying to go. He too was saying he'd like to know exactly what happened, and I was like, Jim, I don't know. You can't connect the two of your experience.
Read the room, Jim. He was down there at Ticats last week too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let's change topics. Another situation that I just don't know what's going on. One game of glory on Saturday, coming back from a 7-1 deficit. The Blue Jays come back and win a game. The bats are hot. Maybe, of course, we are in sports here. Is this the game that turns everything's around? And then they fall flat on their face, 5-1. The bats go cold. Are the Blue Jays a lost cause? Should they just start selling players now?
Do the players want to be there? Really? You don't see the joy. And I was listening to Kevin Barker and Blair after one of the afternoon games last week, and they said, read the body language of some of these guys. Read, Bichette with an RBI double, Bichette with a big hit. They're not doing that, going back to the bench. It doesn't look like they're having fun. And at the end of the day, I want to see them have fun. I want to see them win, but I want to know they're still a team. Bubs, you said it. You're gonna go out and you're just gonna score 9-10 runs on one night on a great comeback. Wow, 6 runs, and then it took you 9 innings to score one, in the meaningless run. I think it was a sac fly yesterday, was it not?
Yep.
Danny Jansen, a pinch hit sac fly to make it 5-1.
The excitement.
Oh man, whatever fans were left there, what a terrible Mother's Day present. No offense. If you took your mom to the Blue Jays game yesterday, hopefully
lunch bag letdown.
Hopefully you had a nice lunch plan before or a nice dinner afterwards, because that would have been a huge letdown. I would say amongst me and my friends, we've had this barroom conversation where it's I have no motivation to go see this team. Why would I spend money to take the GO train to buy unless the tickets are given to me? There's really no motivation for me to go see the Blue Jays, because I have no hope that they're going to score more than 2 runs on any given night. So yeah, if guys don't want to be here, start selling them. And it's frustrating because the pitching has been so well. Manoah shouldn't have gone 8 innings. I know he let him go.
He was actually pretty good.
That's what I mean. Your bullpen was hurting from the day before. That's fine. But until that 3-run home run, he was playing really well. And maybe if the Blue Jays had scored some runs, maybe if it's 4-0 or whatever, maybe you pull them earlier. So I don't know. They're just not a fun team, man. So unless they can really turn things around, and I'm not here saying fire Schneider, because I don't think he's the right guy to fire. Again, just like my Brendan Shanahan thing, I'd go right to the top with Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, above Ross Atkins, because I don't know. Again, at the end of the day, what is Mark Shapiro hang his hat on? That $600 million of renovations?
There you go. There you go.
Who cares if I'm not going to? I still haven't seen the new renovations because I haven't been bothered to go to a game yet. So who cares if it's the nicest stadium in the league? If you're not putting anything worth watching on the field, then why am I going to go spend another $40 on beers and popcorn to sit there and be bored for 2.5 hours?
You talk about team chemistry. There was an incident that really didn't get a lot of press. I don't know if you saw this. When they split the series against the Philadelphia Phillies, and David Schneider was the interview with Hazel. And Vladdy came out to go douse him with his, not the full Gatorade, but like the bottle of Gatorade. And he looked really uncomfortable and said, no, not now, not on the road, whatever. And then he was like, come on. And then he's like, no.
Yeah.
And he looked really uncomfortable, as in like, Vladdy, no, we're not doing this anymore. And this is David Schneider, right? Not one of the locker room leaders, or at least what we believe to be a locker room leader. I thought it was really uncomfortable there. Like, maybe there is some type, we've already saw the home run jacket. That's been stopped. I don't know. And I'm not trying to pick on Vladdy, because right now he's been hitting really, really well over the last couple of weeks or so, which is great to see, because they can't go anywhere without him not playing well. Yeah. But you talk about team chemistry. I thought that was a really interesting sort of like kind of a standoff. Normally that situation is always so much fun. Then it wasn't a lot of fun in that situation.
Yeah, you know what? Like I say, it's still early. What are they? 5 games below 500?
Still over 20% into the season.
Yeah, it's 20%. Yeah, exactly. And like the thing is, and I said this last time, is that like I look at what they're doing in Atlanta under what's his name there, Anthopoulos. Thank you. So like he was here. You had him. You had Anthopoulos. You let him go for these 2 guys from Cleveland who have renovated the stadium but haven't done much else. So again, we go back to playoff series wins, last year, and that turning point of Bichette and George Springer colliding. And yeah, it's hard to be excited about Toronto teams these days, but luckily Sarah Nurse and her PWHL Toronto maybe can turn things around here.
Here's one that may really turn us around and get people all excited. Now this is a report from CBC, and who do a fine job, and the WNBA, they are reporting, have won a bid to have an expansion franchise in Toronto. If this is to be true, there is some type of official announcement that's coming at the end of May. If this is to be true, are you expecting the WNBA to be a slam dunk success in the T-Dot?
Yes, I do. I think this is the perfect time. I think Rico, or Coca-Cola Coliseum, I called it Rico earlier, but Coca-Cola Coliseum is a great spot for a team like this, and ride the wave of women's professional sports finally getting the airtime that it deserved from the beginning. But that's the thing. Put it on TV. Put it on TV somewhere people can find, and it's going to grow. The Caitlin Clark effect, it's real, right? And we saw Edmonton sell out WNBA preseason game this year. We've seen Toronto do it before as well. I think this is really built for success, and I know I spent a lot of this show complaining about the people on top, but is there a better person to be running this than Larry Tannenbaum, right? What he's done with the Raptors, and that was really, the Raptors were always his baby, right?
Yes, very true.
Tannenbaum and basketball went together hand in hand. He's the right fit. I know the woman they brought from the Raptors who's going to be in charge of basketball operations for the team. I think I've heard nothing but good things about her, and for her to leave the Raptors obviously gives you some sense that this is real, and we don't question the CBC's reporting on this. I think this is the right time for it. Women's sports is getting their moment that they deserve, and Toronto, if you're a city of whatever you are, 4 million people now. I don't know how big Toronto is, but you should be able to get 8,000 people to a arena, at exhibition there. So I think this is going to be built for success, and I think it's going to start with the talent. Obviously, you build a winner, people are going to want to see it. But I think Tannenbaum obviously knows what he's doing when it comes to basketball in Toronto. So I think this is a really, really good fit, and it's going to take some Canadian stars. It's you're going to have to really build around it. Luckily, there are quite a few in the WNBA now. Canadians making their name for them, but making the name for themselves. So I really hope this succeeds, and I think it's got the keys to succeed.
Again, just another niche market to add into the pie. But I think this is, with all due respect to the PWHL, the WNBA is already established. They're miles ahead in terms of marketing and how do we get make this product big. And you'll be the one solo Canadian franchise, very much like the Blue Jays, very much like the Raptors. So you will be almost, in essence, Canada's team. And this, you talk about the Caitlin Clark effect. I agree with you on that, but I think that whole draft class, reminds me, again, I'm old enough to remember the draft class of 83 in the NFL where, basically 6 quarterbacks were drafted in the first round, and I think 5 of them have ended up in the Hall of Fame, right? You're talking about game changers, different types of personalities. We're seeing a personality about these WNBA players which we've never seen before. Kind of rivalries. I think I'm really curious about this league, and we're talking about season tickets in the WNBA. Since this draft class have been drafted, up 109% across the board. That's a sick number.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. You're doubling it.
Yeah,
right?
That's insane to me. Right? So as we have little girls that grow up and want to be hockey players for the PWH, we're going to see the same for the WNBA, and I think this is a great thing.
Little Vince Carter effect too, right? And that's the other thing. You're going to have a lot of people come in, watch this team, and there's a lot of hard courts in basketball. We talk about hockey just being an expensive sport to pick up and to start playing. You can always just pick up a basketball and find a hoop in Toronto. So just like the Vince Carter effect, which is very real, and the amount of Canadians coming out of the NBA out of Toronto, kind of post those glory days in the early aughts, as they say. I think watch Toronto in terms of 15-20 years and the amount of talent, women's hockey and basketball coming out of that city again.
Can I make a little prediction?
Go for it.
Someone by the name of Kia Nurse puts in her 2 years with the Los Angeles, with Magic Johnson and the LA franchise, and then she comes here to pilot this project here in Toronto and be our star player. Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
Well, isn't 2026, the timing kind of works out for that, Bubs? You might be onto something. You might be onto something.
Kind of cool. I think it would just work out, just fit nicely.
Just a little bit.
Final thing, NBA playoffs are underway right now, as everything is going on right now. The funny thing about this is, again, these series too. If you're an NBA hoops fan, the playoffs have been wild. The funny thing is, where are LeBron? Where are these guys? They're nowhere to be found. Are we seeing a changing of the guard? And I could just start listing off all these young stars that have taken precedence and kind of grabbed the mantle from the old guys.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Indianapolis last night, right? What were they doing? Where were the Knicks? That wasn't the Knicks teams we've seen all playoffs. No. The Tyrese Halliburton kind of players. There are still the stars, right? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Jokic has won 3 MVPs in the last 4 years.
They're hanging on.
He's the star. Yeah. So it's just like one of those things that, I think we are definitely going through a changing guard, as to be expected. I mean, Steph Curry is 36, 37. LeBron James is going to be 40. Like, it's expected. Is Kevin, I think we built a lot of these stars up so much based on their regular season success, and that's why we're left with these Kevin Durants who haven't won, not in Golden State. You have, are we still going to call James Harden a star? Is Kawhi even still considered a superstar? Like, when he does play, he's good. I think it is. It's a different generation. You got the Harts and the Jalen Brunsons and this. I would agree. I think it's harder for maybe a more casual basketball fan like myself, where I'm not the Dave Roberts putting the parlays down. Who pays attention to who these guys are.
Former Sportsline guest.
Yeah. Because I find that with basketball. Because there are so many changes. Because there are guys leaving after 1 year, even coaches. Frank Vogel, right? I find it difficult, especially with the Raptors not being good. I find it difficult for it to maintain my attention these days. So I think it's good that there's a change in the stars. I would just add that with a caveat that sometimes when we talk about these new stars, we have the effect of, let's not diminish just how good LeBron James still is, though, right?
Sure.
Let's not diminish the fact that I would still trust Steph Curry at the 3-point line with no seconds left, probably over any other player in the league right now. But it is nice to get to see these newer guys, different teams winning. It's great to see, Madison Square Garden all hyped up, all the celebrities. Are we going to get that Boston Celtics, Knickerbockers, Eastern Conference Finals again? it's a great time to be a basketball fan and to get to learn some of these new names, and whether they can continue to be stars. I guess that's the next question.
Well, you're right with Boston. Like a Tatum could really make that move into the ascension of being a real leader. He's a fabulous player, MVP candidate. There's no doubt, but he's not known everywhere. Let's just put it that way. As good as he is, I think the one last thing that that you kind of touched on this, which I think is kind of neat too. When I talk about these young stars, think about the markets that they're in. Minnesota, Anthony Edwards. This guy's nuts. Like, this guy's so good.
Put up 40 spots.
40 spots all the time. Could be responsible for knocking off the champs, right? Yeah. Which would be so interesting to see. And, of course, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You're not going up against another MVP candidate, but out of Oklahoma City. Could you imagine the Western Conference Final? And, again, this would be a 57-win team against a 56-win team, the 1 and the 2 seed, one of the 3 seed, if it was Minnesota versus OKC. Now, I don't know if the big markets are going to love it because, the TV ratings is a different thing. But, boy, again, we talk about the young stars. These guys can take over games at any time, and I think it's fun to see. I've seen LeBron and those guys. I get, again, much love and respect. But I think it's time to turn the page.
Well, and you were talking about SGA and what he's done and these new younger stars, right? Like, let's not forget, like, LeBron spent a lot of his career in Cleveland, but he never won one in Cleveland, right? Like, it does take some time. We won it afterwards. Early. He never won in that first era of Cleveland. He had to go to Miami and come back and win one. So, like, a lot of these stars, we might be watching for years to come. Like you said, the Browns and the Tatums and SGA. Like, this is a good experience, whether they etch it out or not, whether they can make it through and make it on as the top seed in the West. That's a pretty good accomplishment on its own. And NBA MVP finalist at SGA. But let's give this guy time. He's still pretty young, and I'm excited about these new faces of the NBA. To your point, are they marketable? I've seen a lot of people complain about this SGA commercial that they keep running in the States. We don't see it here in Canada, but there's this commercial that's really getting on people's nerves that features SGA and another NBAer. So, how does he translate that to being a face of the league? And are there guys who have that personality to be the LeBron James and the Dwayne Wades? Like, we don't see that too often. These guys who have that sort of personality, and I think there's a humbleness to it. So I guess we'll see, because I think the NBA needs some new stars league wide to really continue that trend. It's always been a star driven league, and I think the options are plenty in this year.
Well, maybe a guy wearing number 43, but the Pacers and Spicy P. Imagine that, him winning a championship and not in the Raptors. It's a weird thing.
I know, an OG too. OG's got to get healthy so he can be out there.
No, we've been saying that question forever with OG. He's got to get healthy. Hey, my man, great sports talk again. Great to get you out of your mold a little bit.
You.
I know you got work to do. It's awesome.
I guess so.
Awesome.
Boss might be watching, so yes,
true.
I do have hard work.
It's true. We both of us got to get ready for 6 and all the other kind of things to do. But great talking sports with you, and man, so much to go on at this time of the year. You talked about this. Really, what a busy time of the year this really is. But with that, it becomes a lot of fun because there's just so much to talk about. There's other avenues we could have gone through.
RBC Canadian Open in 2 weeks, Bob.
Isn't that something?
Like, that's, and then like we said Hughes and Pendrith with a great showing.
With a great showing
last night, and we got the PGA Championship this week too.
Championship.
Forgot about that.
Maybe back-to-back weeks that Max Verstappen doesn't win a race.
Wow! Could you imagine?
What
a stupid schedule. We didn't have time to talk about that. Why did you go to Miami, take a week off? Now you're in Italy. What a stupid schedule that was. All right, do your thing.
Buddy, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
All right, hope you join us again.
Thanks.
All right, buddy. Hey, folks, that's your Sportsline podcast for the day. And as you just seen and heard, we love talking sports. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline podcast, want to hear from you, please subscribe to the Sportsline podcast on YouTube, TikTok, and please comment, hit that thumbs up 5-star and subscribe button so you always get the latest and greatest of all the podcasts here on CHCH, including newsmakers and trending now with my man Louie Butko for the creative hands that make this production possible. Thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow.